Hi, I'm Amy Baldwin, and I'm here with Lori Hazard, and it is the end of the semester. And so, um, students are finishing up those final projects. They'll be home soon, perhaps, or they'll be somewhere other than campus. So we decided to talk a little bit about what kinds of conversations families could have with their student about how the semester went. And so, really, this is kind of just a reflection. I call it a post-mortem, but that's a terrible term because it means autopsy, basically, you know, reviewing what happened to the dead body. But so not the most pleasant term, but reflection works well. What is the benefit, first of all, Lori, of having your student talk about what worked, what didn't? What's the cognitive, emotional benefit for that?
I think again, reflecting on how things went can create behavior change. Um, I also think I often think of that term shoulda, woulda, coulda. So I'm sure students, as they're ending the semester, if things didn't go as well as they would have predicted or hoped or wanted, some students are going to be in that shoulda, woulda, coulda mode.
Hmm.
It also is, what changes can I make?
Yeah.
So reflecting and sort of taking a benchmark or stock in what happened can kind of give you insight to, do I want to keep going down this road, or do I want to make some changes and do things differently?
Yeah. And this is good practice for anybody to do for any reason. But also it's especially good for people who actually did well. And I embedded reflection in my classes. Students either like it or they don't love it, love it that much. But it is a wonderful practice to get them to be thinking about what worked. And I had a student who she did very well academically. Her reflection was it was at a cost socially, and she wished she had reached out and done more and had more friendships and events like that. So that was her pledge for herself the next semester. So talk to us a little bit about what areas do they probably need to reflect on that would be most helpful to them making changes for the next semester.
Yeah. Well, I think you just nailed it, right? So they want to think about how they did academically
Mm-hmm.
and what changes they might make. And often students think about this in terms of their grade point average. So they might think about improving their grade point average for the next semester, and how would they go about doing that. They might think about changing their academic behaviors. Sometimes students will do well academically, but they've procrastinated all semester, and they it came at a cost to their sleep and their health. So they might have done well, but they didn't do so great balancing their sleep hygiene and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. So I think there's a variety of ways to reflect academically, but then there's also that example that you gave. Um, College is about getting involved and having a good social life, and it, doing activities and maybe creating some leadership opportunities for yourself. So there's an important piece of doing things outside of the classroom. And so how do students find that balance? So maybe somebody didn't join a club or organization, so their second semester goal would be to join a club or organization.
Well, and the flip side of that is, and I've had students who've said they've been too social. And one of the things that they want to work on is creating boundaries and saying no. So, and parents need to hear this, but I have students who say my family is expects me to come home a lot or to help with things even remotely, and I've had to say no because it has affected my ability, emotionally, but also academically. So yeah, it can go either way, like get more involved or find ways to get less involved. What about emotionally? What kinds of things do parents and families need to think about in terms of helping their student reflect on that? What do we mean by that, I guess?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest emotional adjustments in college is living away from your family if you're a resident student. If you're a commuter student, balancing managing things at school and home, and sometimes those students can feel like they're straddling both worlds. So a commuter student might ask themselves the question, how did I do balancing the emotional load of doing my schoolwork, but also still fulfilling my family obligations. I think there's that piece of students finding a friend group.
Mhm.
And I think students need to reflect on, were they good at setting boundaries with peer
Mhm.
pressure, maybe related to their college experience, that maybe they didn't do well academically because somebody was pulling them in another direction. How they do with homesickness if they were experiencing homesickness.
Yeah.
um, what about things like anxiety and depression? Did those kinds of things get in the way? And I think the biggest thing to reflect on is, was I able to reach out for help if I was experiencing those pitfalls and challenges? And as we've talked about before, most colleges have counseling available. And if
Mhm.
I was in distress emotionally, did I reach out for help and make an appointment at the counseling office?
Yeah, I think that emotional piece is probably one of the most important, especially what I've seen this semester with the students that have come in. So, you know, they're learning to regulate emotions. They're learning to deal with not feeling their best, sometimes not feeling, you know, well at all. And that being able to talk through with a family member, you know, what happened, what would they do differently is going to be really key for the next semester. Because I would hate for a student to feel extreme emotional distress every single semester. That's not healthy. And it doesn't make, even if you got through it, it doesn't make for a good experience.
Yeah.
I think we've all had situations where we got through it, we did it, but
Right.
we weren't happy about it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we've been focusing a lot on the what could have went wrong, but students should also reflect on what went well for them and how can
Yeah.
they propel that and leverage that and continue some of the things that went really well for them.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to start is what did you do well? What wins did you have? Or I ask my students, what are you most proud of so far? And you know, a lot of them will say that I'm still here, that I'm still doing this, that I'm still putting one foot forward. And those kinds of admissions should be celebrated because it's been a, you know, tough few years. COVID has not been a friend to our emotional health. And, you know, a lot of our students are struggling through that and working through their emotions related to that. So,
So
so does it have, go ahead.
they should look at the good, bad, and the ugly, right? They should reflect on the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So these conversations hopefully will end on good note, you know, but just reminding families that if the student felt overwhelmed at any time or felt like they couldn't do something, you know, as you said, Lori, there are resources on campus, and maybe over break, looking those up, contacting those offices, getting ahead of potential issues, you know, is a great way to kind of start the new semester. So thank you so much, Lori. Appreciate your advice and help. And I'm gonna stop the recording.